gentle overlords, slicing night. Neon flames, throbbing bright. A stegosaurus in flight. Cyberdon ready to fight. Planet Zoids, star of chaos. Blue guardians, tremble and loss. Red mutants, scatter like loss. Renegades, wild wind toss. Cyberdon's roar rips the sky. Laser beams scream, don't ask why. Enemies fall, one by one. Robot war machine, ain't done. Clockwork, hearts beat, battle drums, circuit, blood through copper runs. Other renegades they shun. Cyberdon's war just begun. Electric suns burn and flash. Under his feet the crash. Enemies' hopes turn to ash. Cyberdon's fierce fiery lash. Gears grind and engines roar. Zoidstar's war forevermore. Angle grinders and metal claws. Victory through Cyberdon's jaws. Cyberdon's war rips the sky. Laser beams scream, don't laser beams scream. So that's why laser beams scream, don't enemies fall. One by one, one by one by robot war machine ain't done. Robot war machine ain't done. Clockwork, heartbeat, battle drums. Support blood through copper rungs. Other renegades they shun. Cyberdon's war just begun. They done. Gorhecks rises from the waste and shadows. Metallic roars echo in the night. Chrome armor gleaming under neon lasers. Stegosaurus might fall. Just waits in electric storms of fury. tribe screams through slashing claws and iron. Echoes of defiance resound. Steel confront and steel in the blaze of conflict. Heroes of the battleground. Gorhecks stands tall in the dust of echoes. Enemies falter in the face of might. Throw awake form giants in the lunar shadows, guardian of the night.
fury untamed.